Hey everybody, we have two great sponsors for you today. The first is Hover.com. With hundreds of domain extensions, no heavy-handed upselling, and best-in-class support, Hover makes it easy to spend less time on your domains and more time on your big idea. I've been a customer of Hover.com for years, and I couldn't be happier. Their service is top-notch, and the extra value they bring is unmatched. And now, you can use the offer code BUILDSOMETHING for 10% off your first purchase. Our other sponsor is WP Stagecoach. WP Stagecoach provides easy WordPress staging sites. Create your staging site with one click and import your changes back to your live site with one click. If you need to make changes to your WordPress site, it could not be easier to test them with WP Stagecoach. Head on over to howibuilt.show/stagecoach for more information. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of How I Built It, the podcast that asks, how did you build that? Today, I'm here with Robby and Justin from Beaver Builder. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yep, thanks for having us.
So I'm pretty stoked to talk to you guys. We've worked together in the past. We partnered together for a webinar on WP in 1 month, which is another thing that I do. But I'm very excited to talk to you guys about how you built Beaver Builder, especially given at the time of this recording, there's kind of been like a tweet storm and strong opinions about page builders. So we get a little bit of the hot drama after it's cooled off, right? By the time this show airs, I think probably we'll be on to something different. But why don't we start with, tell us a little bit about the product and how you came up with the idea for Beaver Builder.
Yeah, well, Beaver Builder is a page builder for WordPress. It's a plugin and also a theme, and it makes it really easy to build out websites on WordPress.
It was really just like Robby says a lot, and when he kind of tells the story, is scratching our own itch. Just we wanted an internal solution for our agency, Fastline Media. We're doing client sites, and there was a couple clients that we had that needed specific solutions that we, either used advanced custom fields or, built some custom meta box stuff for. We also had some experience with different themes, like on ThemeForest, that had proprietary builders, or I don't think we did a whole lot with Visual Composer. But anyways, seeing all these solutions and needs and all that kind of thing, we decided to kind of give it a go ourselves. And so we built what we wanted. And as we got into it, we realized what we were building and that we wanted to make it a product over time. So that was fall of 2013. And then by April of 2014, we released as Fastline Page Builder, and then eventually became Beaver Builder when someone told us our name sucked.
Man, that's pretty cool. So you guys as Fastline Media did client work, and then decided you needed a better page builder and built it. That's very cool. I find that most of the people I talk to are like, oh, well, we just needed something, and so we built it, and then we realized other people needed it. So if there's like one takeaway in however many episodes we're at right now, 10 episodes, that my listeners take away, it's that build the thing that you need, and other people probably also need it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a little bit easier because you know what you want. Versus if I was like, I'm going to go build a calendar plugin. It's like, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Right.
But, a visual editing for us and for clients was, something that we needed and knew what we wanted. So it made it a little bit easier.
Yeah. And it sounds like you kind of knew what you liked and what you didn't like, which it brings us to the next question, which is, what kind of research did you do while building this? It sounds like you looked at other page builders, but, how in depth did you go?
Well, I mean, definitely, to be honest, I did look at a lot at the WordPress space, but I branched out and it was like Weebly and Squarespace and looking at everything really. But at the same time too, I mean, it was kind of organic the way this all happened. So it's not like we did any like official research. It was kind of like playing around with other stuff, seeing what people were doing in that space.
I think it's kind of funny, like looking back on it too, because I think Justin and I both had that perspective on page builders that we hear all the time now, which was just like we weren't we weren't into it. Justin's more the hardcore developer, but like I know my way around some code, and we like building out pages and writing code and getting into it, and we kind of didn't see them as being a worthy tool. But then once we tried one, or we had the opportunity to build a client site using a page builder, we kind of saw the benefit of using the page builder, like, and using that that method. But we couldn't, yeah, we exactly like you guys were saying, we didn't find one that like fit all of the requirements that we had, and that's kind of where we started building our own.
Gotcha. And that, I mean, that makes, that makes just a ton of sense. And I'm a developer. I'm the same way. I'm like, I make WordPress things. If I'm building something on WordPress, I should custom code everything. But, a few of my sites are using a stock theme in Beaver Builder now, or even Beaver Builder's theme, because that's less time I have to spend worrying about coding and more time I can spend on the actual product. If I had to develop the courses I offer now and build the site, it would have taken me double the time. So that makes so much sense. And the one thing I really like about Beaver Builder is that I can kind of switch between the editor and the page builder and still have the same content, which is, I think, a big criticism of a lot of other page builders that use like short codes or whatever. Like, the page builder goes away and so does the content, but that's not the case with yours, which is really nice. So when you were kind of building this out, or once you launched, did you talk to anybody about features, business advice, kind of direction, and things like that? You said somebody told you that your name sucked, but what other, did you seek out other advice besides that, I guess?
Yeah. So I think when we were building, like during the actual like building time, we all shared an office together in Campbell, and that was a really cool experience. So since then, we've like Justin and our other partner Billy have moved out of the area. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. Well, long story short is we don't have our office anymore. But looking back on it, like when we were building Beaver Builder, we were all sitting in an office, and it was such a fun experience to just kind of like Justin would call us over like in the morning, be like, "Hey guys, like I stayed up kind of late last night, but like check this out," and we'd all like run over, and he'd have this like feature that we'd been talking about the day before, like implemented, and like having like the proof of concept, and it was just this really like exciting time. And so we were able to collaborate amongst each other a lot. And then after launching, we've definitely like reached out to everyone that would we could for advice. I think I'm always trying to do, I think all the guys are trying to do is learn and reach out. Particularly our community has been really like amazing. Like the person that told us we need a new name was one of our first customers, and a whole lot of our kind of now mentors and people that like really like had an early influence on the product came just straight out of our community. So we've been really blessed in that sense.
Yeah, early on, the customers were like huge. I mean, it still is. It's just there's a lot more feedback now. But when we had our forums, and we would only get a couple posts a day in the beginning, but it was some pretty devout customers early on. Really helped like kind of the early feature roadmap. Like there weren't things not even in Beaver Builder. Well, Beaver Builder didn't even export content to the post editor. Within the first couple months, one of our customers said, "Oh, if I deactivate this, the pages are blank." And we're like, "Oh yeah." Same for being able to save templates. That wasn't in there. That was another like, "Oh well." I'm like, "Well, you can duplicate pages." And like, "Well, that isn't really the same." So yeah, just in terms of just the community feedback and things like that. And then I think too in terms of business advice and direction, like I wish we had the resources we have now back then, because it would have made things so much easier. We had to figure out a lot of stuff and make a lot of mistakes, but we've definitely been growing, like Robby said, and reaching out to a lot more people. And we have, I'd say, a better support system now in terms of our business and what we can do there and what we're learning.
Nice. So that's really cool. I think you kind of have to make a lot of mistakes. I imagine it's like, yeah, I imagine it's a lot like, so my wife is pregnant and so we're expecting our first child in March, and I've been thinking a lot about parenting and how you can't just tell a kid, like you're not, well, I mean, like you can't tell like a teenager, like you can't do that. Don't do that, right? You got to let them figure out, if they figure it out, it'll stick more. So like, you could take all the business advice in the world, but when you actually go through it, then you're like, yes, what that person told me makes sense, and I'm not really smarter than anybody else, and I'm going to run into the same issues. So, but
they make it sound Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just going to joke, like the on the job training equivalent of the MBA, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
this is the lab.
Well, like you were saying too about taking the business advice versus living it. I always feel like everyone makes it sound so easy when they're giving you advice, and then you're like this. I still don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, definitely got to jump in with both feet sometimes.
Yeah, and like some of it is just like I had a guy, I like won a business plan competition when I was in college, and this one guy was like, "What you got to do is you got to come into the office wearing a suit, because if you're wearing a suit, then you feel like you're working." I'm like, this is by far the worst advice I've ever gotten, because it doesn't help me at all. So it's going through it knows you know what works for you, and then you know what also more importantly maybe doesn't work. So cool. So you guys have a pretty hardcore plugin as far as like code goes. So I'd really love to know like how you built it, right? The tools you use, some of the coding methods. How do you test, especially because you have to, it has to work with like a wide range of other plugins, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think we really did anything unconventional in terms of like necessarily how it was the tools we used, just code editor, Git. We're using Gulp for a few things like minification and whatnot. Coding methods, tried to always keep everything as object oriented as possible. I was like, because I came from Joomla to WordPress, and I really liked what really turned me off about WordPress, and back in the day when I was using Joomla, was how like procedural everything was, and there was a lot of like spaghetti code, and Joomla is just like MVC hardcore, way almost too hardcore. That's probably why it wasn't as adopted as WordPress, because you can't just jump in and start hacking it as easily. But I try to keep everything as clean and organized as possible in terms of the plugin. No frameworks. Everything's just like all vanilla, PHP and JavaScript, which, I mean, if I had done it today, I've learned a lot more. I might have, especially, what's the hot, React is the hot framework these days. Back then,
React, yeah.
It would have been Backbone.
Backbone, Angular, Meteor, Noun.js. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would have made that decision a little bit differently, but I'm definitely don't think it was a bad decision to go vanilla, because I've seen someone too, like recently, like I forget what plugin it was, but whatever framework they're using is changing how they're doing things in a certain way. So now they have to go back in the plugin and, building compatibility for that and whatnot. So I guess we have that benefit of not having to worry about some third-party developers changes breaking our stuff.
Right. Yeah, Angular's doing that, I think, right? Angular 1 and Angular 2 are like vastly different. They might as well be different frameworks from what I've heard, so.
Yeah, I saw some interesting talk. I think it was a mod in the advanced Facebook group saying how Angular has just kind of been left in the dust by React because they've been spending so much time making this complicated beast, which is version 2. Yeah. But so, yeah, I mean, it's, the code base has definitely grown from the beginning. Yeah, you asked about testing too. So with testing, that's a tricky one, because I think it comes down to like kind of things like standard things like shortcodes and how shortcodes work in general, rather than I'm going to test 100 different shortcodes. I'm going to test this one way that shortcodes are parsed or whatever, because I mean, there's just so much compatibility that we have to worry about. It's hard to just, test everything. But the nice thing too, and I've been realizing this lately too, is because I'll see less and less support requests, is that over time, it's just Beaver Builder's, this compatibility has been built a certain way, and we know that things have to work this way, otherwise they'll break, all kinds of different stuff. So we've just been building in compatibility with different, plugins and the way things work in WordPress for, the last 2+ years. So we don't have to worry about doing as much testing with certain like compatibility things and whatnot. In terms of testing with WordPress itself, whenever the release candidate's out, I'll do all my development on with the beta testing plugin on. So that way, I'm just constantly using Beaver Builder with the next version of WordPress, and to catch anything there.
Nice.
But yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Cool. Very one feature I was thinking about this the other day, because I wanted to restrict like a section of my website, and I couldn't use like the restrict content shortcode, and I was like, oh man, I'll just like use the restrict content shortcode, and then I'll use their like Beaver Builder's template shortcode, and then I was looking through your settings, and I'm like, or I can just make it visible to people who aren't logged in. Like I totally missed that as a feature. But so I got a little creative, and it's cool because it seems like your product is really like flexible enough to do that. Like I don't know how many people know that you can pull in a template through a shortcode, but it's a pretty neat thing to do, especially if especially for if you want to use it like in other parts of your theme or something like that. So that's so I think you guys are doing a really great job with that stuff. So I was really curious to know kind of how you stay on top of that, because like I spoke to Yoast last week, and he their testing environment is crazy because they're on like 11% of websites or something like that. So
Yeah.
I'm always curious to see like what really big plugins do to make sure that things kind of stay compatible. And on that note, I like to ask if the product has gone through any transformations, which we kind of talked about, but there's one in particular I want to talk about, and that's recently you have been included with GoDaddy, like the GoDaddy installer platform, right? So how did that come along, and did you guys have to do anything? Like what did you guys have to do to kind of make that work? Like how does that whole process work?
Yeah, we're really excited. It's been a long time in the works. Not long after we launched Beaver Builder, actually, we got an email from a guy at GoDaddy, and they'd been like coincidentally researching page builders, and they'd found us. They really liked it. They happened to be local. And so we were like meeting with them. It was funny. There was like one day when like one of their like executives showed up in like a black Uber to our little office, and we all like, we had our collar shirts on, and we got donuts and coffee, and we were just like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on right now? Like,
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
But yeah, so I mean, this was like years ago, and since then we've kept a relationship with them, and we were able to work this out. It just kind of all came together and fit in where they're using the light version of Beaver Builder and including it in their onboarding process. Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity for both of us. Their team, I know, was great to work with. Justin worked with them more. I think he's probably got the better insight on it, on like what actually went into it from the back end as far as implementing it.
There wasn't a whole lot, to be honest, or as much as you'd think with, someone like as big as GoDaddy and us like partnering with them that was involved. It was actually a pretty smooth process too. They do have some fantastic developers there too. I mean, people that I've looked up to in the past, like Frankie and Jonathan. I'm drawing a blank on their names, but they used to work at like XWP, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but so basically we created a companion plugin together, me and them, and it's just got some like basic logic for GoDaddy because they install it alongside the light version, and what it does is it'll load their templates in, and then it loads in a handful of our custom modules that they wanted to be able to make their templates. Other than that, yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot more. They install the two together. It runs if the light version is active, and we still get our call to action to upgrade and things like that. So that's more or less it. But
cool.
It's definitely fun being able to kind of experience that.
Yeah, and it's I know like in the Facebook group you guys have a lot of people were worried about GoDaddy doing things with anybody really, but I think it's a testament to the dedication that GoDaddy has to the WordPress community. So I'm really glad to see that. Congratulations to you guys for that. I saw that because of that you just like upped to 100,000 active installs or something like that, right? Is that what it was? So
yeah, we're still like working out the kinks on like the tracking and all that, but I guess what they had been testing on a subset of their accounts for a little while. So like we love watching that metric, even though like they call it a vanity metric. Like, but we love watching the install, like active install. Like, every time it ticks up, we usually like throw that little party emote in our Slack channel, right? And this time it ticked up like really, really quick. Like we had the little party emote, and then it was like a couple days later and it ticked up again, and we're like, whoa, wow. Wow, okay.
Nice.
And then tracked it back and figured out how that was all going.
Cool. I mean,
GoDaddy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you like. On podcast launch days, I just sit there like refreshing Libsyn, just like watching the podcast numbers go up just slightly. So it might be a vanity metric, but it's a fun one. So
who doesn't, right? Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah. So cool. So what are your plans for the future? You've you've got a very popular plugin. You have integrated with GoDaddy. What are you guys working on for the next iteration?
I mean, we've been pretty public about. I mean, we're pretty transparent with what we're doing, and again, it's just community feedback. Our community wants us to be transparent, and we don't really have anything to hide. So a lot of this stuff's already been out there in like sneak peeks in the Facebook group and whatnot. But two of our big efforts right now are revamping the user interface, and the reason for that is based on feedback that we've had over the years in terms of things that could be easier to do, or kind of user pain points, and then also to building some compatibility or some standards for the third-party ecosystem. Because our current UI, we never thought that people would be building all these companion plugins and doing all this stuff to Beaver Builder. So we didn't even consider that when building the UI. So now we're taking that into consideration and how things can fit nicely in there without, just the module and template lists exploding, and the need for third parties to implement all this different functionality. So that's piece one, UI. And one of our customers, Brent Jett, you may have seen around our community, it organically happened where he's like doing some concepts and this and that. Next thing you know, like, can we just hire you to do this stuff? And so he's building that for us, and I'm working on it with him. And then the second big initiative is theme building. That's, what we're calling it right now. On some level, you're building a theme, but not really. We'll figure out the terminology when we get closer, but that's going to encompass like, you have your single.php for all your posts. Rather than building your posts with Beaver Builder, like each individual post, you'll just be able to create a template that, then when you go into the WordPress editor and you do the title, you add a featured image, maybe you got some custom meta and this and that, and Beaver Builder will just populate it into this template. And we're going to have some dynamic field data connections, like with post meta and advanced custom fields. Even things like picking your color, you could just connect it to like a setting in the customizer. And then that way, when you change that setting in the customizer, it'll change your button colors and things like that. So those are our two big initiatives right now. And then there's a lot of just like little things going on behind the scenes too, in terms of just minor update. Like today we pushed out a minor update, and Eugene had done YouTube and Vimeo URLs for background videos. So we got that out today. So there's like a lot of little like things like that that are easier to implement on a smaller scale that we'll be continually doing over time. So I think that's pretty much it. Those are the plans for a lot of the technical future. I don't know if Robby, there's anything you want to say about just the Beaver Builder in general.
A bunch of cool things are brewing right now. Yeah, it's a really exciting time. A lot of it's spurred, like Justin was saying, doing some, like there's been this blossoming kind of third-party ecosystem where people are kind of utilizing, even like what GoDaddy's doing by like, bringing Beaver Builder and making it part of their platform. We've been kind of like thinking about a lot of ways that we can continue to make it, extensible and usable, and and kind of making it a platform for people to build on. Even more so than they are already.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. I'm very excited to see what you guys are cooking up for the next few months and next year or whatever. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Now, the last question I like to ask is separate from the rest of the list, right? I don't know if you know, a lot of people I've noticed don't notice it. So it takes them by surprise. But do you guys have any trade secrets for us?
Oh, trade secrets.
This could be like just a tip, like something that you always keep in the back of your mind when you're developing, or when you're developing, or when you're working on something. Or it could be like a bar trick, or just something that helps you with your business and your plugin, or schmoozing in general. So
that's funny. I hate to say it, but like the first thing that comes to my mind is our unofficial boardroom, which was the sports bar down the street. We definitely had a lot of our like war meetings and and critical conversations over a baseball game and a beer. I don't think that's a trade secret though. I think if it is, that secret's out.
Depend what team. Who's your baseball team?
Well, we're Bay Area boys, so I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't say it's the Giants first. I think
Gotcha.
Fastline Media is a Giants company, but I'm an A's fan.
I'll
Nice.
root for both, but yeah, if the Giants and the A's meet in the World Series, definitely the Giants.
Nice. Well, you're talking to a born and bred New Yorker here, so I'm a Yankee fan.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
glad we could help you out all those years.
Cool, very cool. Justin, what about you? Any trade secrets you have for us?
I mean, I always say this kind of thing is like my advice. It's like super generic, but like work hard and like treat people how you want to be treated. I mean, just because it's like what has worked for us. Like when we're an agency as Fastline Media, like we did good work. We treated our customers well. We were there for them, and they would in turn spread the word. And that we didn't even really have to do any marketing. We would just get people calling us and being like, "Oh, hey, so and so." And the same is translated to doing a product business. Is just working hard, providing a quality product, being there for people, good support, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it really matters because without it, you could have the best product in the world, but people are going to hate you and be like, no, don't use those guys. I mean, the mob can bring you down pretty quickly. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean that without a doubt. Like I think a lot of people have said that on the show, and it seems like it's kind of second nature when you do it a lot, but it is something that you need to keep in mind. So treat people the way you want to be treated, and communication is key. I think those are two very important things. So cool. Well, Justin, Robby, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
And thanks to our sponsors, Hover.com and WP Stagecoach. Definitely check them out. And one last request. Last week, I launched a new Patreon campaign in order to raise money to put out better content. If you head over there today, that's patreon.com/howibuiltit. You will be able to see a sample of some of the new content I'm putting out. I give you a brief history of how the internet was built. So super interesting to me. I hope you find it really interesting as well. Head on over again to patreon.com/howibuiltit to check that out. Contributions start as low as $1 per month. Thanks so much for listening, and until next week, get out there and build something.